Sam's life as a zookeeper is simple. Feed the animals, avoid small talk, and definitely don't fall for any tourists. But when Dennis, an overly enthusiastic guest with a fanny pack full of animal puns, stumbles into her exhibit and maybe her heart, her quiet routine is turned upside down. He's chaotic, corny, and completely inappropriate for her carefully curated world. So why does she keep wanting to see him again? In a zoo full of surprises, sometimes the wildest thing isn't behind a fence. It's falling for someone who makes you laugh when you least expect it. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The sun had just begun to climb above the treetops surrounding Grizzly Hills Wildlife Park, casting golden beams across the walkways and enclosures. The air was cool, tinged with the earthy scent of animal musk and fresh-cut grass. Birds chirped from the canopy above the lemur dome, and somewhere far off, a gibbon hooped like a kid who just got the last cookie. Sam adjusted the strap on her utility vest and took a deep breath. She loved mornings at the zoo. The peace before the visitors flooded in, the quiet rustle of animals waking up, and the way the sunlight turned the tiger enclosure into something almost mythic. She was halfway through her usual morning rounds when she saw him. Striding confidently past the ticket kiosk was a man in cargo shorts, a bright blue t-shirt with a cartoon sloth hanging from the word, "Hang in there," and a bucket hat that somehow screamed both lost tourist and middle school science teacher. He had a camera strapped across his chest, a pair of binoculars bouncing against his hip, and a grin that could be seen from the wolf exhibit. As if sensing her glance, the man turned and locked eyes with her. Sam blinked. Something about him, maybe the chaotic energy, maybe the way he was power walking with no real direction, sent up every red flag she'd developed after years working around animals and unpredictable humans. And then he said it. "Hey there," he called, his voice bright and unreasonably cheerful. "You must be the queen of this jungle, because you're looking utterly fabulous today." Sam froze, one hand still on the gate latch. "Oh no, not today. Not this early." She turned to face him fully, hands resting on her hips. "Did you really just use an otter pun before 9 a.m.? He jogged the last few steps toward her, completely unfazed. "Absolutely. Gotta set the tone, right? First impressions and all that. You do realize I work here? That's what makes it better," he said, as if it were obvious. "You're in your element. I'm just trying to break the ice. With puns. With animal puns," he corrected, wagging a finger. "It's a niche art form." Sam stared at him, trying to place the odd warmth creeping into her chest. Was it horror? Amusement? A weirdly specific fondness for chaos in a bucket hat? He thrust out a hand. "Dennis. Pun enthusiast. Aspiring zoolinguist. This place is my mecca." She raised an eyebrow but shook his hand anyway. It was warm and sincere. Sam. Lead zookeeper. Owner of rapidly decreasing patience. "Sam," he repeated, trying it out. Strong. Simple. Like a lion's roar. That didn't even make sense. Didn't it? He winked. "I think you're just lying to yourself." Sam exhaled. Long and slow. The kind of breath she took before diving into the flamingo pool to fish out something unspeakable. Still, somewhere inside her, right behind the exasperation and beside the secondhand embarrassment, was the tiniest curl of a smile. He caught it. "Oh ho," he said, pointing. "That was almost a grin." "Was not. Was too. I saw it. Right there, just under the left eye. You're hallucinating. Then take me to the reptile house so I can hysterically recover." Sam turned, starting toward the lemur trail. "Come on. If you're going to torture me with wordplay, you may as well walk and suffer at the same time." Dennis beamed. "Does this mean I get a personal tour?" "It means I'm supervising you for the safety of the animals." "Even better," he said, falling in step beside her. "I promise to behave. Or at least be bearable." Sam groaned. "You're unbearable." And yet the corner of her mouth twitched again, just a little. She didn't stop it this time. The early morning zoo was still half asleep, the pathways quiet and dappled with light. A few keepers pushed wheelbarrows full of hay past the aviary, and the elephants were only just starting to meander toward their breakfast pile. It was the perfect time to get things done. Unless, of course, you had a relentless pun machine shadowing your every step. Dennis walked beside Sam like an excitable golden retriever let off leash in a tennis ball factory. "So what's the first stop on our magical animal mystery tour?" he asked, practically bouncing. "You mean the route I've done every day for 5 years?" Sam replied, "It's thrilling, full of poop, chaos, and the occasional escaped goat." "Perfect. I like my days with a side of unpredictability." Sam shot him a look. "Too soon?" Dennis asked. "Too something." They rounded a bend, and the giraffe overlook came into view. 2 of them, Maisie and Rocket, were standing near the feeding platform, their heads poking over the railing like curious tourists at a buffet. Dennis gasped. "Oh, my gosh. They're majestic. They're like horse deer with neck stilts. They're giraffes." "I know, but look at them. It's like nature forgot when to stop drawing." Sam chuckled. "Maisie's our oldest. She loves pears. Rocket's the youngest, still learning not to eat his own enclosure signs." Dennis grinned up at them. "Well, I just want to say, you all have really high standards." Sam closed her eyes and sighed. "You've been waiting to say that since you saw them, haven't you? I actually wrote that one down in the parking lot." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small notebook labeled Pun and Games, Volume 3. Sam stared. "There are volumes?" "Oh yeah. You're in the presence of a legacy. God help me." Dennis walked closer to the railing, craning his neck to match the giraffes. "You think if I do this long enough, they'll accept me as one of their own? You'd need a better neck and a lower pun-to-silence ratio." He glanced back at her, smirking. "I like you, Sam." She blinked. "That was sudden." "Well, I figured you already know. I mean, I did call you fabulous and compared you to a fox within the first 60 seconds of meeting. Yeah, most people wait until at least the meerkats before emotionally ambushing me." Dennis turned back to the giraffes, watching as Maisie reached down and plucked a carrot from the feeding bin with slow, deliberate grace. "I'm serious, though," he said, his tone softening. "I've been to a lot of zoos, traveled solo to most of them. They're kind of my happy place. But this one, it feels different. Maybe it's the trees. Maybe it's the vibe." Sam hesitated. "Or maybe it's the exhausted woman humoring you while she tries to make it to lunch without quitting her job." Dennis laughed. "Could be that." Sam felt the faintest tug in her chest again. There was something weirdly disarming about him. Beneath all the puns and awkward flirtation was a sincerity that poked through like sunlight under an awning. She wasn't sure she liked that. Or maybe she liked it too much. Dennis took a deep breath, staring up at the towering giraffes. "You know what I think? Dare I ask? I think you're secretly enjoying this." Sam snorted. "What makes you say that? You haven't told me to go away yet." She opened her mouth to respond, paused, then closed it. "See," Dennis said triumphantly. "I'm growing on you. Like zoo moss. You're unbelievable. But incredibly charming," he added. "I wouldn't go that far." "Oh, but you'd go giraffe far." Sam stared at him. "That one didn't even make sense," she said flatly. "Didn't it?" Dennis wiggled his eyebrows. And despite herself, despite the ridiculousness of it all, Sam laughed. Not a scoff or a snort or a polite chuckle, but an actual full-bodied laugh that surprised even her. Dennis froze. "Oh no. What?" "I think I just unlocked an achievement." "Oh, don't flatter yourself. I'm putting it in the notebook. You're insufferable." "And yet," he said, falling into step beside her again, "you're still walking with me." She shook her head, hiding a smile behind her hand. "Come on, pun man. Let's see if the penguins have room for one more hopeless case." Dennis clutched his chest. "She called me a hopeless case. That's practically affection. Keep talking and I'll introduce you to the dung beetles." "Oh, things are getting steamy." And with that, they disappeared down the path together. Zookeeper and pun artist, laughter echoing faintly through the trees. The penguin exhibit always smelled like cold fish and wet socks, but Sam didn't mind. It was a favorite among the guests, clean lines, faux icebergs, and a dozen tuxedoed misfits waddling around like tiny drunk uncles at a wedding. The kids loved it. The penguins tolerated it. Dennis, however, looked like he had just stepped into Narnia. He pressed his face to the glass, fogging it up immediately. "Look at them. They're so serious. So important. I bet they're holding a board meeting. They're probably just waiting for lunch. Oh no, he said dramatically. They're plotting. I can feel it. Those two on the left, clearly in cahoots. And that one with the little fluff on his head? Criminal mastermind. Sam stood beside him, arms crossed, watching him narrate the penguins' lives with too much conviction and far too much joy. He was pointing now, at one penguin in particular, who was doing absolutely nothing but stare back blankly. That one's name is Gerald. I've decided. Gerald is going through something. He has a pebble stuck in his foot, Sam said. Dennis looked at her, scandalized. Don't ruin his emotional arc. Sam chuckled and leaned against the railing, looking through the chilled glass. You know, Dennis said after a moment, his tone quieter now. Penguins mate for life. She glanced at him. Yeah, I know. He nodded, eyes still fixed on the little group huddled together at the water's edge. I always thought that was kind of amazing. Like, of all the creatures on the planet, the waddly fish-breath icebirds were like, yeah, just one. Forever. They do these elaborate courtship dances, too, Sam added. The males bring pebbles to the females they're interested in. Nature's jewelry. Basically. Dennis smiled faintly. I brought a pebble to a girl once. Sam looked at him. You're kidding. Nope. Summer camp. Age 10. I picked the roundest one I could find and gave it to her under the canoe rack. What did she say? She said, and I quote, "EW, did this come out of your nose?" Sam barked out a laugh. Ouch. Crushed my spirit. Scarred me for life. And yet, here I am, back in the zoo, flirting with a zookeeper by projecting personalities onto penguins. She raised a brow. Flirting, huh? Dennis turned to her, and for once, the joking light in his eyes softened into something real. I mean, kind of hard not to. Sam felt a flutter in her stomach she hadn't authorized. She looked away. Most people don't use puns as foreplay. That implies I'm expecting an after. Silence. He bit his lip. Okay, that came out worse than I meant it. Sam smirked despite herself. A little. Dennis shifted beside her, gaze drifting back to the penguins. Honestly, I do use humor as a crutch. Especially when I'm nervous. You're nervous around me? He gave a sheepish shrug. You've got this whole cool zookeeper with a walkie and boots and tiger confidence thing going on. Meanwhile, I'm over here sweating through a sloth shirt. Sam blinked. The idea that he was the intimidated one hadn't crossed her mind once. Well, she said, voice softening, you're not the worst company I've had to endure on a tour. Is that a compliment? Borderline. Dennis lit up like she'd given him a trophy. I'll take it. They stood side by side for a while, just watching the penguins preen and dive and shuffle across their icy terrain. It was oddly peaceful. Sam, Dennis said suddenly. Yeah. If I brought you a pebble, would you throw it at me? She turned to him, one brow arching high. Depends on the pebble. He grinned. Then I'll find the perfect one. And she didn't say no. By noon, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, gilding the treetops and casting dappled light across the zoo's winding pathways. The summer warmth had fully set in, mellowing the animals and the humans into a kind of collective midday stupor. Sam found herself sitting on a bench beneath the overhang near the sloth habitat, sipping a paper cup of lemonade and wondering when she had last spent this much time with a guest. Normally she'd have handed them a map, given a 2-minute overview, and gone right back to cleaning toucan droppings off tree branches. But Dennis wasn't like most guests. He emerged from the visitor center carrying 2 iced coffees, one in each hand, his hat tilted back, sunglasses askew, and a proud grin spread across his face. Mission accomplished, he declared, handing one to her. Double cream, no sugar. The exact way you ordered. Which I remembered because I'm emotionally invested. Sam took the coffee. Or because you asked me twice and then repeated it out loud like a chant while walking away. Same thing. He sat beside her on the bench, just a little too close. Not touching, not crowding. But close enough that she could smell a faint hint of sunblock and whatever woodsy shampoo he used. In front of them, the sloths hung in their usual awkward poses, upside down, right side up, sideways on branches, in various states of near napping. One was lazily scratching its stomach with all the urgency of a philosophy major writing a term paper the night before it's due. Dennis let out a long sigh. Now this, he said, is the good stuff. Slow, serene sloth vibes. Honestly, I aspire to their level of commitment to doing absolutely nothing. Sam smiled behind her coffee. You're surprisingly chill when you're not talking. That's because you gave me caffeine. Caffeine equals calm in my weird little body chemistry. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the sloths do their thing. The zoo buzzed quietly around them, families passing by, strollers creaking, kids laughing in the distance. But for the moment, it felt like their own little corner of the world. Dennis leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Can I ask you something? Sure, she said warily, as long as it's not another pun about sloths. It's not. He paused. Well, mostly not. Sam tilted her head toward him. Why did you become a zookeeper? He asked. I mean, of all things? She blinked, caught off guard. No one ever asks me that. I'm not most people, he said, and for once he didn't smile when he said it. She looked back at the sloths. I was always kind of quiet. I liked animals more than people. They don't pretend. They don't lie. They just are. You feed them, protect them, earn their trust. It's simple. I needed something simple back then. Dennis nodded slowly. Back then meaning something happened. She gave a half shrug. Family stuff. Messy. I came here to volunteer one summer when I was 19. The lemur bit me, the rhino pooped on my shoes, and I never left. Dennis smiled gently. You say that like it was a bad thing. It wasn't, she said. It saved me. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I get that. Sam turned to look at him, really look. He wasn't performing now. He wasn't playing the lovable goofball. His eyes were soft behind his sunglasses, his expression sincere. I used to move around a lot as a kid, he said, still watching the sloths. New schools, new cities. Never had time to get good at fitting in, so I just leaned into being weird. Funny. Easy to forget. People don't forget you, she said before she could stop herself. He glanced at her. Their eyes met. And for the first time, Sam realized she was in trouble. Because he wasn't just fun. He was kind. And real. And making her feel seen in a way that wasn't part of her job description. I like being around you, Dennis said quietly. Not just because you laugh at my jokes, though let's be honest, that's a bonus, but because you don't try to be anything you're not. She shifted in her seat, suddenly too warm in her khaki uniform. Dennis. I know, he said quickly, lifting a hand. I'm a guest. This is weird. I'm probably pushing it. Sam didn't respond right away. She stared at her coffee cup, the ice clinking softly inside. She thought about how many people breezed through this zoo without a second glance, and how he somehow had slipped past her walls in a single morning. No, she said finally. You're not pushing it. His eyebrows lifted. You're just catching me off guard. Dennis smiled. That's fair. Sloths catch me off guard all the time. Sam laughed, grateful for the return to levity. One of the sloths began to move, a slow, deliberate crawl across the branch, like it had suddenly remembered an appointment. Dennis pointed dramatically. Look, it's doing a thing. Sam rolled her eyes. Amazing. Truly nature's acrobat. They both laughed, and as their shoulders bumped just slightly, neither one pulled away. The lemur enclosure was usually Sam's favorite part of the zoo, mainly because it was where most of the drama happened, and Sam, being a zookeeper and low-key adrenaline junkie, enjoyed being in the eye of the storm. But today, it was about to become the setting of her personal undoing. Is it just me? Dennis said as they approached the enclosure. Or are lemurs basically raccoons with jazz hands? They're smarter than raccoons. And meaner, Sam said, already eyeing the group of ring-tailed agents of chaos lounging suspiciously near the feeding platform. Do not let their faces fool you. Those eyes have seen war. One of the lemurs, Biscuit, watched Dennis with a narrowed gaze, as if detecting a threat in the form of loud shirts and relentless puns. Dennis leaned against the railing. I dunno, I think they like me. At that exact moment, Biscuit stood up, grabbed a nearby enrichment ball, and hurled it with the dramatic flair of a baseball pitcher fueled by vengeance. It hit Dennis squarely in the shoulder with a hollow thunk. Okay, wow. Dennis clutched his arm in exaggerated betrayal. They've made their stance very clear. Sam burst out laughing. Congratulations. You've been formally initiated. But the chaos had only just begun. As Dennis stepped back from the railing, trying to rub the pain out of his shoulder, Sam noticed something out of the corner of her eye. 2 lemurs slipping through a latch on the lower gate. A latch she had just double-checked. Or thought she had. "Wait," she said slowly. "Wait, no. Too late." Biscuit and Nugget leapt off the platform and scurried through the gap like stripe-tailed escape artists, disappearing around the corner in a blur of fur and righteous freedom. "Oh no," Sam groaned. Dennis blinked. "Was that supposed to happen?" "No," she snapped, already vaulting over the service gate. "That was very much not supposed to happen." Dennis took one look at her sprinting after the lemurs and immediately bolted after her. "All right, lemur chase it is. Stay back," Sam yelled over her shoulder. This isn't a guest-friendly situation. But Dennis kept pace beside her, panting. "What if I want to be emotionally supportive? Then wish me luck from a safe distance." They rounded a corner by the snack stand just in time to see Biscuit leap onto a trash can lid and use it to vault onto a low roof above the gift shop. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Sam muttered. Nugget darted toward a toddler holding a half-eaten hot dog. In the time it took the child to scream, Nugget had snatched the hot dog and was already halfway up the artificial waterfall rocks. Dennis, without thinking, lunged forward. "Dennis, wait." But he was already in action hero mode, arms outstretched as he tried to intercept Nugget's getaway. What he did not account for was the mud puddle at the base of the waterfall. Time slowed. 1 foot hit the mud. Then the second. Then his whole body pitched forward with all the grace of a falling tree. He landed face first in the muck with a wet, slopping sound that echoed off the surrounding rock walls. A beat of silence. Then Sam's laughter exploded from her like a sneeze, loud, irrepressible, unstoppable. Dennis groaned, rolling onto his side, dripping and stunned. "Is this part of the tour?" Sam doubled over, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. "Oh my God! You tried to tackle a lemur. For a hot dog." "I was trying to help," he sputtered, wiping sludge off his face. "I could have caught him. You couldn't catch a cold right now." He grinned through the mud. "But you laughed. Like a maniac," she said, breathless. "Worth it." She looked at him, still sprawled on the ground, covered in zoo sludge and lemur shame, and something about the ridiculousness of it, the utter selflessness behind the stupidity, made her heart thud louder than she liked. Behind them, one of the interns finally arrived with a kennel and an apologetic shout. The lemurs were quickly rounded up, though Nugget refused to give up the hot dog and had to be bribed with a banana. Dennis sat on the edge of a planter, dripping mud into the grass. Sam handed him a towel. "That was either the bravest or dumbest thing I've seen all week." "Let me guess," he said, patting at his clothes. "I'm still not allowed to join the lemur rescue squad?" "You're banned for life," she said, smirking. "But I'll allow supervised visits." He looked up at her with that crooked, mud-streaked smile. "I'd go through it again," he said. Sam crossed her arms, amused. "For the lemurs?" "No," Dennis said. "For the laugh." There was a pause. Then Sam said very quietly, "You're kind of an idiot." He nodded solemnly. "Only for you." By the time the sun dipped below the tree line and cast long amber shadows across the walkways, the zoo had emptied out. The crowds had vanished, replaced by the quiet hum of cleaning crews and the soft shuffling of animals settling in for the night. Sam stood at the flamingo pond, clipboard in hand, checking off the last of her evening duties. The birds were tucked into their weird little S-shaped sleeping poses, heads resting like question marks on their backs. Behind her, slow footsteps crunched on gravel. "I come in peace," Dennis said softly, "and slightly less mud than before." She turned. He had cleaned up surprisingly well, still wearing the same ridiculous sloth t-shirt, but now only faintly damp, with his hair fluffed up from a hasty rinse under the staff sink. Sam raised an eyebrow. "You're still here?" "I figured I should stick around long enough to formally apologize to the lemurs. They left a strongly worded complaint with HR." He smiled. "Worth it." She shook her head, but the edges of her mouth curled. "You're not like most guests." Dennis stepped up beside her, both of them now watching the flamingos silently as the sky turned dusky lavender. In the distance, a lion gave a low, sleepy roar that vibrated faintly in the air between them. "It's quieter now," he said after a moment. Sam nodded. I like it best like this. When the crowds are gone, the animals relax. The zoo becomes itself. Dennis looked at her. And so do you. She glanced at him, caught off guard. You're different when it's quiet, he continued, not in a flirty tone this time, but something gentler, more thoughtful. You don't have to hold everything together. You don't have to be the tour guide or the gatekeeper. You're just Sam. She blinked. No one had ever said it like that before. No one had ever noticed. And you, she said carefully, are less annoying when you're not trying to be funny every 10 seconds. Oof. He clutched his heart. That almost sounded like affection. Don't get ahead of yourself. He smiled, but didn't tease her further. Instead, they stood there for a while, bathed in golden twilight, as the wind rustled the leaves overhead and the flamingos dozed without a care. Finally, Dennis broke the silence. Can I ask you something? You're going to anyway. He turned to face her fully. If I wasn't just a guest, if I was someone who lived here, worked here, came by more than once, would you ever think about something real with me? Sam's breath caught. Not because it was abrupt. Not because it was too soon. But because she had been wondering the same thing. I don't know, she said honestly. I've spent a long time building walls around my life. Around the things I love. And then you showed up. With your dumb puns and your ridiculous notebook and your too big heart. And suddenly the walls feel thinner. Dennis didn't say anything. Just listened, really listened, with a stillness she hadn't seen from him before. I don't know what that means yet, she continued. But I don't want you to be just a guest either. A slow smile spread across his face, something different from all his others. Less cheek, more awe. Then maybe I'll keep coming back. You think you can survive this zoo more than once? I survived lemur warfare and a puddle ambush. I'm basically a veteran now. Sam laughed, but softer this time. She met his eyes and didn't look away. Dennis, she said quietly, I want to see what this could be. He stepped closer. Not assuming. Not pushing. Can I kiss you? He asked. Sam's heart thudded. Yes, she whispered. And just like that, with the sky fading to indigo and the zoo falling into hush, he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't fireworks or thunder. It was gentle, honest, like two people who had finally stopped pretending they weren't falling into something wild and wonderful. The next few weeks passed in a kind of quiet magic Sam hadn't felt in years. Dennis didn't vanish like most guests. He came back, and not just for a casual visit. He showed up, on time, 3 days a week, dressed in slightly more practical clothing, though the pun shirts persisted, and carrying that same crooked grin and increasingly large bags of coffee for the staff. Sam had no idea how he convinced management to let him volunteer. She suspected flattery and baked goods were involved. But soon enough, he was shadowing her for Real. Cleaning pens, hauling food, learning the subtle difference between animal enrichment and a very messy mistake with a squeaky toy. He wasn't good at any of it, but he tried, and he cared. One morning, as they refilled hay bins for the goats, Dennis turned to her, dust in his hair and a smear of something vaguely suspicious on his shirt. I think that one hates me, he said, gesturing to Mrs. Pickles, the oldest goat, who had been giving him a death glare for 20 straight minutes. She hates everyone, Sam said. She once headbutted our district manager in the groin. Dennis paused. That's kind of amazing. She's a role model. Sam tossed another flake of hay into the bin, then glanced at him. He was squinting up at the sky, sweat on his brow, cheeks pink from the sun. There was something about the way he stood there, scruffy, ridiculous, and completely unfazed by the smells or the goats or the way Mrs. Pickles kept sizing him up like a WWE opponent, that tugged at something deep in her chest. Something soft. Something vulnerable. I'm not just doing this for you, you know, he said, as if reading her mind. Sam blinked. What do you mean? He shrugged. I mean, I am partly. Because I like you. Obviously. But also because I like this. The animals. The work. The weird rhythms of zoo life. I didn't expect it, but it kind of clicked. Sam leaned on her pitchfork. You planning on staying long enough to apply for a staff shirt? Dennis grinned. You mean I haven't earned my stripes yet? She groaned. That one physically hurt. Good. Keeps you on your toes. They moved on to the aviary, where Dennis somehow managed to make friends with a grumpy parrot named Chester, who bit everyone except him. Sam watched from a distance, arms crossed, lips twitching upward as Chester climbed onto Dennis's shoulder and squawked. Pretty boy. Pretty boy. Okay, Dennis said. Don't oversell me. Sam walked over, leaning close. I'm starting to suspect you're part Disney character. Dennis looked at her, his voice dropping a little. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. She hesitated, her tone quieter now. No, I think it's kind of wonderful. He turned to face her, Chester bobbing between them. Hey, Dennis said gently. I know we've been joking, laughing, flinging hay at each other. But I'm serious about this. About you. I don't need to know where it's going. I just know I want to be here. With you. In this weird, wild place. Sam felt her throat tighten. Not with nerves, but with the kind of emotion that hits when something unexpected turns out to be exactly what you've been needing all along. She took his hand. Calloused, warm, familiar now. Then stay, she said. His eyes lit up. I mean, maybe not forever, she added quickly. But for a while. For the mating season? She punched his arm. And then kissed him, right there in front of Chester, who squawked. Hot stuff. It started with a suspiciously large box. Sam found it waiting by the staff entrance one morning, wrapped in bright animal print paper with a tag that simply read, To the Queen of the Jungle, open during flamingo hours. Flamingo D. Her eyebrows rose. She looked around, but no Dennis in sight. She didn't open it right away. Not because she wasn't curious, but because she'd learned by now that with Dennis, timing was everything. And this, whatever it was, had all the markings of one of his classic, over-the-top stunts. Sure enough, around 2:15 p.m., just as she was finishing the afternoon flamingo feed, she heard it. Music. From the bushes. The unmistakable sound of an 80s saxophone solo blaring from a portable speaker, followed by, Ladies and gentlemen, and birds of questionable elegance, came Dennis's voice, slightly winded but determined. I humbly request your attention. Sam turned. He emerged wearing a staff polo 2 sizes too big, a safari hat, and a cardboard medal around his neck that read, World's Best Guest turned volunteer turned boyfriend. The flamingos scattered in horror. Sam, hands on her hips, laughed despite herself. What is this? This, Dennis declared, holding up a glittery sign, is the official grand gesture. Chapter 8 of our love story. I don't remember authorizing this plot twist. You inspired it. Don't pretend you're not swooning. Sam shook her head, but her cheeks were already pink. He approached her, nervous now. Beneath the antics, something in his eyes had shifted into sincerity. I know this has all been wild, he said softly. And fast. And covered in goat poop. But Sam, this place, this job, you, being around it all, it's the first time in my whole life I've felt like I'm not just performing. I'm belonging. Sam swallowed hard, the smile fading into something warmer, deeper. Dennis. He pulled a small object from his pocket. Not a ring. A smooth, round pebble, perfectly gray, polished by hand. I brought you a pebble, he said. Not because I expect anything. Not to pressure you. Just because I like you. A lot. And maybe this is the world's weirdest way of saying it, but... She reached for it before he could finish. Took it. Held it. I love it, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And I love you. Dennis froze. Wait, seriously? She nodded, and then laughed at the stunned look on his face. I figured I'd cut to the chase before you made a pun about rocking my world or something. I was going to say that, actually. I know. And then she kissed him. Right there, among confused flamingos and overfed tourists, and a staff intern filming the whole thing from behind a bush. 1 month later. Dennis had a name tag now. It read, Dennis. Enrichment Coordinator / Bird Whisperer / Sam's Problem. He wore it proudly. Sam still pretended he was a handful. But everyone could tell. They were Zoomates for life. And somewhere, tucked in the back corner of her locker, hidden beneath a pile of enrichment notes and lemur meds, sat a tiny, perfect pebble in a velvet pouch. Sometimes love doesn't come roaring in. Sometimes it waddles into your life wearing bad jokes and bucket hats. But when it's real, you just know.